Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021. Council will continue to meet virtually until further notice. Meetings can now be viewed live on the City Channel and live streamed on YouTube. Our first order of business is public comment, and I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before City Council, and profanity will not be permitted. Please provide your name and neighborhood for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. Our first speaker of the day is Ikuhana Hamaukina.
Greetings and good day. My title is Ikahana Makina. I am the Grand Inca of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People. And today I would like to read onto the record House Joint Resolution 3. In the 110th Congress and First Session, it is to acknowledge the long history of official depredations and ill-conceived policies by the United States government regarding Indian tribes, and to offer an apology to all indigenous Native people on behalf of the United States. Whereas our ancestors of indigenous people inhabited the land of the present-day United States. This is also, and I'm ad-libbing to include the city of Pittsburgh, since time immemorial, and for thousands of years before the arrival of European descendants. Whereas our people, the Native people of America, have for millennia honored, protected, and stewarded this land that we cherish today. Whereas the indigenous people here in America, Native people, are spiritual people with a deep and abiding belief in our Creator. Our people have maintained a powerful and spiritual connection to this land, as evidenced by our customs and our traditions and ancestral lineage. Whereas the arrival of Europeans in North America opened up a new chapter in histories for our people. Whereas while established, the permanent European settlements in North America did stir conflict with our people, Indian tribes. We were peaceful, and it was supposed to be a mutual beneficial interaction. Whereas this foundation of English settlement in Jamestown began, they owe their survival in large measure to the indigenous people of America. Whereas in the infancy of creating the United States, this relationship with our tribes and also the Northwest Ordinance enacted in 1787, which began with this phrase, "The utmost good faith shall always be observed towards Indians." And I'll end on that note to say, the utmost good faith has not been observed towards us. And it's time for City Council to honor it, to read this precedent that is already has been set, follow these instructions and use that as good faith towards Aboriginal Indigenous people.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gabrielle Gray.
Good morning, council and speakers. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Gabrielle Gray, District 9, Homewood, President of the Extra Concerned Citizens Group, Homewood Neighborhood Chapter. Councilman Ricky Burgess, residents in Homewood have been trying to reach you regarding the damage Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority left, resulting in sewage backing up into the basements of residences' homes that is now flowing into the growing sinkhole near their properties. Due to the lack of response from the city of Pittsburgh, this problem has become a crisis situation and health hazard, placing the lives and the lives of their neighbors in imminent danger. These residents must receive crisis assistance, including hotel accommodations, until the sewage repairs are made by Pittsburgh Water Sewage Authority and the sewage is removed from their homes. Contact Tanya McClendon Todd at telephone number 412-436-6825. Again, that's Tanya McClendon Todd. Telephone number 412-436-6825. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. That does exhaust our list of registered speakers, therefore moving us to our standing committee agenda. And would the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mrs. Kell Smith.
Here.
Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. Our first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. 3 deferred papers, the first being Bill 1475.
Bill 1475, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in the amount of $25,000 to John H. McCurry in full and final settlement of an employment matter.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none?
Briefly, if I may, could we read the remainder executive bills that were held for executive session after we approve this?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Can we read Bill 1501 and 1502 together?
1501, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of William J. Miller Jr. Esquire in an amount not to exceed $25,200 for arbitration services rendered in connection with the City and FOP Act 111 interest arbitration. Bill number 1502, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Desiree Pinkston and her attorney, Michael J. Healy, in the amount of $28,500 in full and final settlement of litigation filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Need a
Motion
motion?
to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Both bills are recommended. We need a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Invoices are approved. We need a motion to approve the P cards.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? P cards are approved. That takes us to Public Safety Services Committee, chaired by Councilman O'Connor. 1 new paper, Bill 1521.
Bill 1521, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into relevant agreement or execute required purchase orders for 2 robot and recon robotics at a cost not to exceed $26,608.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Councilwoman Gross.
that's really fast. Glad I got it there. So I am concerned that this bill is talking about police robots. This is a very big topic nationally, and I think it deserves a little bit of discussion. So Councilman O'Connor, I'm not sure who we have here to speak to this item.
I'm not sure. I know somebody obviously should be here from public safety.
Commander Trapp, I'm on, and so Officer LaPaglia from our SWAT team.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. So I would love for you to describe what we're looking at here.
It's just, I think, distressing to a lot of the population that we be talking about robots and policing in the same sentence. So if you could please describe to us what we're seeing.
Yeah, so what these are is they are little, basically mobile cameras that allow us to see, for example, when we have somebody that's barricaded in a house, rather than sending officers directly in and risking the safety of the person that's barricaded and the officers and possibly hostages, we send the camera in to get a look and see what's in there. And basically, that's what these are. They're cameras that can go up steps. They give us the layout of things, all that kind of stuff, go into crawl spaces, attics, where rather than risking, like I said, officer safety, we send them in to do this. They're not robots that carry guns or explosives or anything else. They're robots that take a camera in and let us see what's going on inside any place that we send them.
I thought we had legislation to prohibit these kinds of purchases. This sounds like the kind of military equipment that council has discussed and banned before. Can you speak to that? It's
not the type of military equipment that your legislation, this isn't that. This is not an offensive weapon. As I said before, it's merely a camera that motors are on so that we can see in there. I think it's provides a lot of safety and protects even the person that's the barricaded suspect.
I don't believe the legislation banning military equipment actually used the term that you just used, offensive. What did you use? Offensive what?
They're not, it's not a weapons platform.
I don't think our legislation mentions offensive weapons platforms.
I'm pretty sure it didn't ban cameras, and this isn't a military thing. It's used by law enforcement all over the world.
Okay, so it's a camera. Do you have a picture? I could go to the website. Is Recon Robots? Is that what it is?
That's correct.
So Recon Robots, and it shows a thing kind of like on two wheels that can have additions. There can be like added additions to it. Are these models going to be able to have? I don't even have the right vocabulary here. I'm not a.
No, we don't put additions on them. We only use them as surveillance reconnaissance cameras, and they're only used in like barricades and that type of things. They're not used for any other general activity.
So I'm going to ask a question that I've asked recently about other kinds of technology and surveillance equipment, which is that what written guidelines do you have for the use of this kind of equipment?
So the guidelines are that this is used as a camera. I mean, that's it. I don't, don't know what else to tell you. That's all we use it for, is a camera, so we have situational awareness.
Only in SWAT situations?
That is correct.
All right. And so help us and the public understand kind of like what is technically a SWAT situation?
So generally they're barricaded suspects with or without hostages. They're high-risk search warrants. Generally, though, these are mostly used on barricades. We know or believe that somebody's in there armed. They may or may not have hostages, and the camera goes in to show us what's in there.
Okay, and again, just because, robots is a scary term, how do you use them? Can you describe? So SWAT has been called in, and it's only SWAT that will be using them, is what I heard you say, I think.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then what happens when SWAT arrives? And
so SWAT arrives, they take up a perimeter. In a tactical commander advises an incident commander about what various proposals are. So we always start off with hails, trying to get the person to come out peacefully. Then negotiators generally will try and make contact with whatever way possible. If those failed or the person refuses to come out, at that point, whenever possible, we will insert the throwbot into the house or the structure to try and determine, A, if there is somebody in there, B, where that person is, whether they are armed, what the conditions of any hostages are.
Right. And so you're basically like, I mean, it doesn't call itself a drone, but someone's guiding it and you're seeing the video feed?
That's correct.
Okay. And so it's videoing as it goes. So, I mean, I still think we're on a really new territory. Mr. LaPaglia, you want to mute yourself? There's a lot of background noise. Justin LaPaglia, it says on my screen. Thank you. So we've seen police forces using some very big, scary looking robots in other cities. And I think that is exactly what the kinds of things council has discussed here before that we're not comfortable with.
Well, if you looked at the site, you'll see this is a very small thing on wheels. It's not a big, scary robot. Okay.
And so, you know, I have looked at it, but we can't see it right now that we're talking. So but, you know, I don't remember the exact specifications. Can you tell us and the public how big is very small?
So it's in length, it's 8.3 inches. In width, it's 7.9 inches. In height, it's 4.5 inches, and it weighs 1.3 pounds.
Okay, so it's, you know, smaller than a shoebox, and it's kind of bigger than your phone, but it's smaller than a shoebox, and you would be using it only in SWAT situations. Is that, again, part of written guidelines?
Yes, it's part of the operating procedures for our SWAT team. Okay,
great. And that for this purchase, is it, again, in the guidelines that other parts of the police force cannot use these kinds of things?
Yeah, it belongs exclusively to the SWAT team.
All right. I think that makes me a lot more comfortable because we know that SWAT is a special deployment that's only deployed in very, you know, dangerous situations, and the public knows when SWAT has been deployed, right? And so I think what we don't want to see is that there are kinds of technology and surveillance technology that we don't know when they're being deployed, and we don't know kind of in what context and for what purpose.
I agree with you completely on that. I don't want surveillance cameras with no purpose, no knowledge, and no oversight of it. That's not what this country's about.
So I'm glad we agree on that, and I appreciate you helping, again, us and the public kind of make sure we hear that commitment. I think that's important. So I appreciate that.
You're quite welcome.
I don't have any further questions right now, Mr. Chair, but I am concerned that we always have these discussions when we see this kind of technology coming in front of us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further discussion from members?
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you. Commander Trapp, good morning. Thanks for being here. I was just wanting to double check what I heard, that this would not be used in a situation where there's a large crowd, where there is a crowd of people, protest, that sort of thing, even if there were concerns about individuals within the protest or within the crowd gathering about who they are, what they may be doing. This would not be deployed in that kind of situation. Is that what I heard?
That's correct. We never use this for anything other than SWAT calls. The only possible exception to that would be a bomb call, where SWAT might assist the bomb squad by sending it in there. But again, nothing to do with the public, nothing to do with protest. And to Councilwoman Gross's point, the bomb squad is as visible, their special deployment, and they're as visible as the SWAT team, so everybody would know that. But that would be the only exception. We would never use it for crowd monitoring or management or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you. Any other members? Councilman Coghill.
Yes, thank you. Commander Trapp, thank you for being here this morning. It's good to see you out on election day. Nice to have a chance to catch up with you. I just
Thank you, sir. Good to see you as well.
Yep, good. I just wanted to say this is, in my eyes, is technology at its best. Okay, and you mentioned, and I kept thinking about, the technology that we have to send a robot to a backpack that might possibly be a bomb, so to be able to use this in situations that, could save lives of our, officers, for starters, is just incredible. It's a tool we hope we don't have to use. We never have to want to have to drag this out, but it certainly can save lives. It sounds like it's very restricted to the SWAT team, but I also want to say, Commander, let's not limit ourselves. When you say strictly SWAT or strictly for hostage situation or a bomb threat, I think you leave that open. Whereas as long as the SWAT team is operating that, I'm fine with it. I trust you. So, I just don't want to limit ourselves to just strictly hostage / bomb situations. So you never know what can arise, as we all know. So you always want to have that capability to use such an incredible machine. So written guidelines, I trust you guys will use it, and the police force will use it to the best of their ability to, we know it's going to save lives. That's it for me. It's technology at its best. I don't always agree on spending money for things that, technologically advances us, but costs a fortune. But this is money well spent. That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other members for the discussion?
Mr. Lavelle.
Councilman Burgess.
So I believe, been part of the conversation of what reimagining the police looks like. Certainly I have introduced multiple pieces of legislation that at least tries to codify what, at least in my mind, that looks like. Reimagining police means having a smaller force, a force that is used for very specific things while providing social services and putting money into prevention so the law enforcement isn't used. The three pillars of reimagining police, from the policing perspective, in my mind, is training, technology, and transparency. Technology is, always a little scary, but tools are tools. Like a steak knife in your kitchen drawer is a wonderful tool for, eating steak and cutting chicken, and, food is my passion. So, but if used maliciously, it can become, a vicious weapon. And so I think Councilwoman Gross is right. I think we should always look at the tool, knowing that the purpose may be benevolent or positive, but we know that these things can be weaponized if one, as she said, add-ons, weaponized. And I guess what I'm suggesting is the conversation we're having, and I'm supportive of certainly of the camera, but the conversation we're really having is one of motivation, right? As we reimagining police, we're actually talking about changing the hearts and minds of historically how police have operated. We know that we know that Pittsburgh has led in terms of this change that's happening nationally, of changing the hearts and minds, the training of how police operates, because we know the status quo is not fair or just. The status quo of our justice system disproportionately targets African Americans, people of color, Latinos, gay and lesbian people. And so we're having this conversation. It's going to be a long conversation, right? It's going to take us beyond my career and all of our careers here to really alter how we do policing. Because even though it seems, and the thing that I find interesting is to the average person, the world's very dangerous. But actually, it's actually not that dangerous, right? If you're not, engaged in illegal activity, if you're not, engaging in people who are doing violent crimes, it's actually not very dangerous. The city is actually not very dangerous. The odds of any of us individually being involved in a violent crime is actually very low. But we have this myth that has been portrayed nationally by Republicans and others that the city is the big bad city is, although there is violence in the city, it is typically localized and typically isolated. And so we are, that's a long speech, but that's the goal, right? The goal is, how do we reimagine police? How do we change hearts and minds? How do we get the community and police in a partnership? We're working together to create a safer environment. 99.9% of all citizens want the same thing from police. 99.9% of all residents want exactly the same thing from the police. They want the same thing for their families. They want exactly the same thing. And so, we'll have these ongoing conversations. I think council's doing a great job of having these conversations, looking at the technology, thinking about the possibilities. I know there is somewhere we passed back in the day with cameras, there is on record a policy. It may be, we may have passed it before you came on council, Councilwoman Gross, I don't know, but we did pass some sort of surveillance legislation. It's on the record somewhere, and I may have to look it up. But we did, when we started looking at cameras, we did pass some sort of privacy policy that limited how cameras could be used at least on the official function of the city. So it may be worthwhile to take a look at that policy to make sure that this is in line, and it may be something very different. Again, I'm going from my institutional memory. I don't have the file in my hand. So I'm in favor of this. I think this is a passive, drone-like instrument that hopefully will lead to less violent encounter and protecting both the, in this case, a subject or a person of interest, and the police who are responding to this, this somewhat intense incident. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell.
Thank you. Any other members for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to our Public Works Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Coghill. One new paper, Bill 1518.
Bill 1518, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, the Norfolk Southern Railroad, and various other stakeholders concerning certain historic mitigation measures to be taken by Norfolk Southern Railroad in the course of its replacement of the Merchant Street Bridge within the city.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Brief discussion.
Councilman Wilson?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a note that this memorandum of understanding, has been brought out of a public process, and this bridge is not going to be involved in the vertical clearance project, so it's not being raised or lowered.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. And thank you for helping lead that process. Any other members for discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended.
Mr. Chair, may I please register an aye vote on 1521?
So noted.
Yes.
Thank you.
That moves us to Land Use and Economic Development, which is chaired by Councilman Wilson. First paper is Bill 1529.
Bill 1529, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections of the city to apply for grant funding from the Allegheny County Department of Community and Economic Development's Act 152 Blight Removal Program to fund the demolition of 6 blighted structures throughout the city. In the event the grant is awarded, this resolution provides for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $250,000. Supplemental funds in the amount of $87,750 will come from the 2021 capital budget for a total project cost of $337,750.
Motion to approve.
A second, very brief discussion, please.
Discussion, Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, thanks very much. Director Kinter, good morning. How are you? Thanks for being here. I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here because I'm working off my phone for some reason. I can't seem to get onto my computer. The quick question is, and it may already be here, is there a list of the properties that are under consideration for demolition under these grant funds?
There are. Would you like that list?
Yes, please.
All right.
And if it's not part of our legislative package, could I ask you please to give it to the clerk and she'll distribute it to all members?
Yeah, sure. Would you like me to read out the list now?
Not necessary.
Okay.
I don't think so. No, thank you so much though. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Councilwoman Smith. I'd like to hear the list, please.
Certainly. So that's going to include 5468 Rosetta and 5466 Rosetta, 1 Shetland, 3.5 Shetland, 101 Industry, and 2247 Humber.
And I'm just going to say, with the federal dollars we have coming in, and we're talking about how to make the most impact to our residents, I think that we're asking Director Kinter to do a huge job with very little resources. It really won't take that much to demo some of the properties after I was talking with her. And I think this has got to be a priority for council moving forward. We're expecting people to live next to homes that are falling apart in deplorable conditions. None of us would want to live next to it, and we have to put the money where it's going to make the most impact to our residents. And I just want to say, advocate for that and to help Director Kinter accomplish the job we expect her to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Coghill, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Kinter, I just really wanted to compliment you. You know, the spreadsheet you gave me with the list of properties that needed demoed, and it sounded like you almost knew of everyone personally. So, you know, and I agree with Councilwoman Cale Smith. That is so important. You know, green space is better than a house that's falling down. So, you know, I know the list is somewhat overwhelming at this point, but I would like to see much more funding going into this. And if the city decides to sell the property, they sell it. If it sits there, then we cut the grass, you know, so you know, places are infested with rats, and, you know, when you leave a place abandoned like that, it's unsafe. People get in there, you know. We tore down St. Basil's School, and, you know, I just couldn't be happier with creating green space is really what we're doing. So just wanted to compliment you. Really good job. Your staff, everybody seemed like they were on top of the abandoned properties that were at least scheduled to come down in my district. So, and we took action on the most imminent ones, and, you know, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, second round.
Still in first round. Any other comments? First round? Second round, Councilman Cross.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So Director Kinter, there you are. And members, I'd like to call for a post agenda. I'd be happy to chair just the state of demolition, you know, as it relates to our responsibilities in the budget. I think it would be a very timely conversation to have, and to take it even one step further to the once demolition is completed, since the day I walked in the door, we have been discussing how to manage the lots that are left behind once we actually do demo properties. So I think it's a really timely discussion. I'd like to motion for post agenda on the state of demolition and hope for a second, and I'd be happy to chair it.
I will second that.
With discussion.
Okay.
So motion is second with discussion. Councilman Smith on the motion.
Thank you. I just want to. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really quickly want to just say we have put in legislation. This council put in legislation on how we can better address the lots and the vacant properties. But I also think somehow, Councilman Cross, I would love for us to combine this post agenda. It may be two separate ones with the land bank and with the real estate department and how we are disposing of properties, because I think really there's a lot of landlords that are not taking care of really their properties, and yet they're buying more and more properties and not taking care of those. And so we just keep adding to the list of problem properties. So I'd just like to have a broader conversation about what we're doing about the land in the city of Pittsburgh. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam President, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's such a complex, complicated, broad conversation. If Madam President, if you're in agreement, I'd like to maybe do it in two stages then, so as to not take too big a bite of an apple. Phase one be to discuss the state of demolition. Phase two to discuss the reuse or repurposing of property. How do you like that?
I just want to have the conversation. Thank you. However you want to do it.
Thank you, and I'd love to have your help on it.
All right, so we currently have two motions. Let's do one at a time. First, the motion on actually approving the bill. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the bill? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The bill is recommended. Now we can hear Councilman Krause's motion for the post agenda. Any further discussion on his motion to hold a post agenda? Councilman Wilson?
Yes, I've been having similar discussions with the department, and quite frankly, how we're going to move forward with actual money to do demolition. So I'd like to be involved in this, if not chair this discussion. This is something that we've been working directly with the director on this for quite some time, and trying to understand what some of these issues are. So I'm happy to work with you, Councilman Krause, but certainly a conversation to be had. It's difficult to have the conversation when you don't have the money to do it. We're all waiting on these funds to come in so we can do this demolition. And right now, it looks like we'll be moving around some funds to actually get that done, just to do the emergency demo that we have barricades around properties that are literally, as we speak, falling down.
Yeah. I'd welcome your help. Thanks, Councilman.
Any other discussion on the motion to hold the post agenda? Councilman Coghill?
I just wanted to add, Councilman Wilson, I welcome you as chairing that. I really appreciate other members' enthusiasm about this. This is, to me, it's not impossible. I think you keep it in steps when we talk about, what we are going to do with that property and bringing the land bank in. Those are all necessary things, I believe, but and moving these properties in the right direction. But first and foremost, demo, as far as I'm concerned, as far as these unsafe structures. And it's a lot easier to get somebody interested in that piece of land if we so choose to sell it to the public or however we handle it, as a green space where they can build. Structurally, if it's in that bad a shape where it's condemned, typically, it costs more to try to restore it. So I just want to keep it in perspective, one thing at a time. But demo, I think is the most important part of this piece of this puzzle, and everything else will fall into place. Thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Cross.
Thank you. Just briefly, part of my motion is to actually chair the do the exploratory on the post agenda. But I welcome the partnership and help of all members that wish to participate.
Thank you. Any further, Councilwoman Strasburger?
Yeah, just quickly to say that while I acknowledge that the district that I represent doesn't have as many houses in need of properties in need of demolition, we do have some, but not as many as other districts. I think that this cannot be done if each part of the city is on their own in dealing with this problem and dealing with this situation. It has to be an all hands on deck solution where residents from all across the city come together to support this. And in that spirit, I'm happy to do what I can to help because I know that even the people who live in, say, District 8, who aren't experiencing a house in need of demolition next door to them, will benefit from a city that has more houses and residences and businesses back on the tax rolls. So whatever I can do to assist, I'm happy to be there.
Thank you. Any other members? If not, I will quickly say, I look forward to the conversation. Some of you all may know I've actually been the anti-demolition person for numerous reasons. In part because of what Councilman Kraus stated about the maintenance of the land, especially in lower income neighborhoods. We demolish, we put the structure in the ground, which then makes it makes it sort of a wasteland. We don't have a plan to clean up that. 2, it makes it more expensive when it's now time to hopefully redevelop that land. 3, if we're talking about naturally occurring affordable housing, which we need, it becomes cheaper to stabilize and fix up a property than try to build from new, especially post-COVID when prices have gone up 100%. So for many reasons, and we'll go to it in detail, and I'll work with Councilman Kraus on the post agenda. I've sort of been the anti-demo person, other than when it's a public safety hazard, which Director Kinter has been supportive when I've actually reached out and said, hey, look, this is about to fall down, and she's reacted and got the structure down. So when it's a true public safety hazard, I support it, but I've actually been the anti-demolition person. But with that said, I look forward to the conversation. So all those in favor?
Chair, I just wanted to thank you for those comments because I was trying to be respectful because I don't know everybody's neighborhoods and districts as well. I look forward to the conversation as well, but I think I'm aligned with your perspective. Your district, as we've talked about many different times at the council table, has experienced a tremendous number of those demolitions, right? And so there's an upside and downside. So I just appreciate your comments. I'll stop there. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, one last time. This is such a hot topic for so many of us that you can see the need for the conversation. I just want to remind us and be respectful of all comments that have been made this morning, that what the discussion that we're going to have is really about balance, right? When is it appropriate to take a structure down? When is it appropriate to save a structure? And how do we understand that balance? And then how do we also understand our responsibilities if and when the only recourse is to take the property down. So it's sort of why I kind of, pushed to want to chair this. It's an incredibly complex conversation that needs to take place. And there are many differing points of views. And I really want to make space for all of them to be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Councilman Burgess also trying to weigh in.
Just for real quick, as you know, there are parts of my district like Homewood is 60% tax delinquent and vacant. And so demolition is a tool. Certainly rehab is a much better tool. I look forward to this conversation. Unfortunately, we just, we don't have enough money. We're just not going to have enough money. One of the things, and I say this all the time, and I think it's true in all council districts, but particularly in mine, I have parts of my district where there's vacant and abandoned houses on every block, right? There's not a block where there's not some vacant, abandoned properties. There's parts of my district that, are that bad. And I always say, and as I've said to you, heard me earlier, it's the number one concern I get, right? It's not violence, it's not PWSA or paving streets, the number one complaint I get is abandoned and vacant properties, of cutting the grass and boarding them up. But just imagine the quality of life on any block if every single property on that block was taken care of. Not necessarily rebuilt, just boarded up and the grass cut. What a transformation in the life of those people if every single property on that block was managed. And I think that's the goal for all of us in all of our districts. You know, it's not enough money to do it, but that's the goal, is that in all of our communities and all of our districts, for every single parcel, eventually to have its highest and best use. But in the interim, as it's transitioning, for it to be managed and maintained. That's the goal. Unfortunately, we as a city don't have the money to do it. So I look forward to the conversation. I think it's ripe time for having it. I think we have to employ every available strategy to redevelop communities, giving a priority because of equity to those low income and those specifically that are African American historically. They must receive a disproportionate amount of the resources that we allocate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further, Councilman Coghill?
Yes. When I speak of demo, I speak of structures that are unsafe. I want to make that clear, okay? Just because every building's condemned doesn't mean it has to come down. But that's a step-by-step process. You know, some need to come down, some don't. Some are worth saving, some aren't. When I speak of the ones in my district, I speak of ones that I know are structurally unsafe and have been sitting there for 30 plus years. And nobody's interested in buying them because the nightmare of taking the old structure out of there. So I just want to be clear on that. And as far as, you know, moving these properties and getting them into the hands of people, and it's a nice thought to have some sort of machine that goes out and fixes all these properties up, but that's not our job. I think that's why we have a land bank or other, you know, entities that can help us out there. We have a real estate department. So I'm not a real estate agent by any means, but I think creating green space when we have an unsafe structure is a good thing for the neighborhood and for the city. And just wanted to be clear that when I talk demo, I talk unsafe structures. Thanks.
Thank you. If seeing no further conversation, all those in favor of holding a posted agenda on the state of demolition and structures with Councilman Kraus chairing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will work with the clerk to get that scheduled. That moves us on to Bill 1530, which will require a motion for a public hearing.
Bill 1530, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title IX zoning Article 1, Section 90203 zoning map by changing from P Parks to NDI Neighborhood Industrial, a portion of one parcel in the Allegheny County Block and Lot System 20th Ward.
Motion to hold for cablecast public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill will be held for a cablecast public hearing. That moves us to Innovation, Performance, and Asset Management Committee, which is chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. First new paper is Bill 1526.
Bill 1526, resolution amending resolution number 315, authorizing the mayor and directors of the Department of Permits, Licenses and Inspections, and Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement to existing agreements to purchase Acela Civic Platform and Acela Citizen Access subscription and cloud hosting services, so as to extend the contract an additional year to June 30th, 2022, and increase the not to exceed cost from $1,289,919.29 to $1,310,475.13.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Second.
So as people know, I believe we have used Acela as it's a legacy permitting system that we used as a city, especially PLI, before One Stop PGH came into being. And as of this year, PLI really isn't using it as much. Less than half of permitting is done through Acela. But this contract is for a 1-year extension with a plan for DOMI to migrate more of their permitting over to One Stop PGH by the end of 2021, and for IMP to begin, I believe, building a database that is associated with it. So just wanted to explain to folks what the extension meant. It looks like we have Director Kincher here to further explain.
Sure. So we previously had 126 licenses. We are down to 10, which is the minimum that the contractor will allow. So this is a $20,000 increase for 1 additional year.
Okay.
PLI uses 1 license, which we mostly use for right to know requests and to look up historical data that would still be housed in that system. Our paper data is housed in OnBase, so we'll continue to do that and transfer our microfiche. And we'll be working with INP to stand up the database so that we can officially be done with Acela. The remainder of the licenses are used by DOMI for their last portion of licenses that are moving to the One Stop PGH system. So it will truly be legacy, hopefully in the next year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman
Yes,
Gross? And then Council President Smith.
Thank you. Director, I just wanted to say how incredibly helpful and succinct and clear that explanation was, because I think we were all looking at that going like, Acela again, on. When are we going to be done with this? So just framing it that way, you did it extremely well, going from like that, the huge number of licenses down to 10, which is the minimum you're allowed to do, and that you're only using 1, and DOMI still has the remainder that in their transitioning. So there is an end in sight.
Thank you.
And that is amazing. We are all so happy for you. And
we're very excited too.
So I know that was terrible. And I'm just wondering if you have, so there's a path for keeping the historical record. So you're keeping that one for right to know requests. And so there's some way where you're going to go export or transfer the old data or something?
Yeah, so we would include notes and other aspects that aren't on the permit document in Acela. And so we still want to be able to access that information if there's a right to know, if we get subpoenaed, things of that nature. So we want to work with INP to stand up the database and all those fields that aren't connected to a document printout so that we have it forever and ever.
So a discussion for another day, but since the last 8 years that I've served here, and we've done so many technology transitions, again, we don't need to discuss this now, you don't even need to answer, but I think that this function of INP being able, and Councilwoman, I'm sure you've been talking to INP about this, of having the kind of consulting capacity to help with information management across departments it's just a recurring and ongoing thing that's not going to go away. Like, we're going to continue to have this need now that so much information is digitized. And so maybe, again, I don't even want you to answer because it's just such a different discussion than what's on the agenda here, but that, we're going to need to integrate those with our archivists as well. And we're really, really grateful to have Nick. And I know that it's been an award-winning thing, and he's been digitizing lots of our records as well. But for that legacy component, it's really a new opportunity, and vastly different than 10 or 15 years ago when there were literally just boxes and basements and people didn't even know what they were. So just another thought that you made me think of, and thank you for your very succinct answer. Appreciate it.
Council President Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I do want to say permitting has been a big issue for years for me. And one of the things I see is, as I've looked in other places, in New York City, for instance, all the permits go under the clerk's office, everything. And I just really feel like we need to do a little bit better. Well, I think people like the one-stop shop, but unfortunately, it's really not a one-stop. I mean, it's one stop to start the process. And after that, you know, people have to come back, you know, they look at plans, then they come back. And I think it's a conversation with planning, you know, DOMI, DPW, everybody who issues permits in the city of Pittsburgh, and PL&I. And I think that we need to have a better conversation and a better way that we address the issues and concerns. And I know you, Councilman Lavelle, and Councilman Burgess and Councilwoman Gross are getting a lot more development and are probably far more familiar with that whole process than we are in our area. But I know that the few times that we've had things, it has been, I've had to get the chief of staff involved so many times, even for small things. And it's like, that's not the way it should work. So I just want to say, I think that we need to really address this issue. We've all talked about it, you know, independently or together with issues we've experienced, but I think having a broader conversation and bringing this all together. And so maybe this might be a post agenda, but I also think it might be a group of us working together to make some changes here. So I'll talk to some of you later about how we can move forward, because I do want to make changes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cargill.
Yes, Director Kinter, you know, as I've told you, I have the utmost confidence in you as a director of the PLI. But, you know, I also have told you, I do feel there are, you know, short changes there in many ways. And for instance, before you, I think it was Maura Kennedy at the time, before I agreed to, you know, purchase that 420 building or agree for the funding for that, I said, promise me you'll have somebody at that desk, you know, where people can actually walk in. And I use it as an example for me all the time. I go in the Dormont, Mount Lebanon, wherever I'm working. It's like, here's the contract. How much is a permit? I'm in and out in 10 minutes, you know. I would almost love to see a regional office, you know, somewhere in the South Hills where somebody could come in and, you know, actually get help from a person who's behind a computer or can walk them through whatever the process is. So I feel like, you know, you probably need more resources. I think Councilwoman Gross and I have argued that on your behalf many times before. So I hope we can get there, but yeah, I still want that person behind the desk, that personal touch. You know, if I don't have people in my life, I don't know if I could apply for the permits, you know, so, but anyway, yeah, we hope to talk about that more. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to Bill 1527.
Bill 1527, resolution amending Resolution 238 entitled Resolution Authorizing the Director of the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement with Coheen Law Group and CTC Technology and Energy for the renegotiation of the city's cable franchise agreements with Comcast and Verizon and certain additional telecommunications consulting services, and further providing final payment to SmartWorks partners for work provided under an agreement authorized by Resolution 741 and 748 of 2018 to increase the total not to exceed amount for additional telecom and small cell facility support to a total of $531,213.70 and to add an authorized signer.
Motion to approve with brief discussion.
Second.
So I know that some members had questions about this legislation, so I wanted to open up the opportunity to directly address this with those at the table. I see Director Ricks, I see Acting Director Newman here at the table. And I don't have questions. I can brief, but I know Councilwoman Gross, maybe others have questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Okay, appreciate it. So I think maybe both directors, if they could join us. So Councilwoman Strasburger helped me when I reached out to her to understand that this is about that contract for the consulting group that is then kind of developing the policies and helping with the permitting for small cells. But everybody knows I've been asking every time anything with small cells comes up. When we did zoning for parcels, when we did policies for the right of way, I always have lots of questions. So one of the things don't see, and maybe there's been reporting elsewhere to council that I've missed, but I'm wondering how many installations we actually currently have as a city. And so I don't know if one of the directors can speak to that. I'm remembering, I think in 2014 or maybe it was 2015, when we had a kind of emergency contract we had to allow because of federal regulations with Crown Castle or something like that. And I made sure that we attached the exact 15 locations so that it wouldn't be an open-ended contract because it was very rushed. And these were the first installations in the city. And I remember specifically some of them were up on Mount Washington because one was right near our city council budget director, Bill Urbanic's house. And so we've had numerous discussions. These things are new to cities. Some cities have handled them better than others. Again, we have policies and zoning around private parcels in the planning code, and we have discussions about them in the right of way, and we have state preemption threatening. So I'm just wondering, kind of Director Norman or Director Ricks, if you could join us. I don't see you. Are you there?
Director Ricks is with us.
Okay, Director Ricks, thank you.
I'm here as well.
Oh, there you are. There you are. I apologize. Just too many participants in the backgrounds here. So Director Norman, from your perspective, let's just start with you. Kind of how are you interacting with this contract, and what do you know about kind of like the volume of these installations?
So the contract covers a number of items that where both INP and DOMI have been working with CTC to look into a variety of topics surrounding 5G and others. In terms of the volume, that's really under DOMI's purview, and I'm sure Director Ricks can speak to the location and the numbers of 5G permits that have been granted.
Sorry to interrupt. For IMP, then, what is how does it overlap with you? You said you're involved where it overlaps.
So we've been working with CTC on assessment of our networks, and they helped us to pull together an RFP for our NetPGH dark fiber leasing RFP that was released a few months ago. And in terms of the 5G, that is where Director Ricks and DOMI have really been working closely with them.
So and I believe that awesome graphic that you showed us last December, that's like the outer ring?
Yes, precisely. Yes. What I'm talking about is the dark fiber network leasing RFP, and that is how we connect all of our facilities together and bring connectivity, network, internet to you.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you. I think that might be it. That was a great visual. I still remember the visual, so thank you for that. And Director Ricks, you're somewhere here too?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you. So this contract was originally, the city needed to renegotiate our cable franchise agreement with the two major telecommunications providers. And so that was a very urgent need. At the same time, we had a confluence of other factors coming forward, including this advent of small cell 5G technology that was going on. And so because this is a area of specialty that only a few firms really have, we consolidated those efforts of what DOMI needed and what IMP needed into a single RFP. So that's why, just as background, the title of this bill is about the cable franchise. This amendment is for that one task area that relates to small cell guidance and what we're doing. So I don't know the exact number of small cells that we have in the city. I'll get that to you as follow-up information. There's, as you know, Councilperson, there's 4G antennas and then 5G antennas. 4G antennas have been in the city, and that's probably what you were referring to in the 2014, 2015 timeframe is really when that fourth generation of telecommunications antennas came to be
distributed antenna networks.
Right, exactly. The 5G now is the latest and greatest, but there's many more of them. They're smaller antennas, but they have a shorter distance range that they can reach. They do carry significantly more data in their transmissions. But because there will be many more of these antennas, they have, they can roughly service an area of just a couple of blocks. We really need better guidance. We're also seeing an increase of applications coming to us. So we currently have about 60 applications for the 5G antennas that have come into the city. In order to do those reviews in the most appropriate way, what this amendment does is actually allow us to tap a as needed provision of that contract to assist with those application reviews so that we can have that higher level of technical expertise aiding us in doing appropriate reviews of these applications. So we have, again, I'll get you the exact number, but I want to say we have about 200 or 300 of the 4G antennas in the city right now. When all is said and done, for the 5G antennas, we will probably be looking at 4 or 5 times that for the 5G antenna, so quite a few.
When you say 200, is that just in the right of way?
Yes, sorry, those are installations that permits that DOMI would have issued. DOMI does not issue permits for those installations that are in buildings.
But if we ask planning, we should know how many they've permitted as well.
Yes.
You can't just stick one on top of your house and without a permit.
I'm sorry, what?
You can't just stick one on top of a building or on top of your house without a permit. No. They're actually, because I remember we voted on the amendment to the zoning code. So there is permitting for them on private parcels.
Correct.
In the zoning code.
Correct.
So I am curious about that because, I mean, some people just do have concerns about having to look at them. I always joke and say they look to me like a crew cut haircut, like on top of buildings. There's just like a forest of them on top of some of our buildings. And in other cities, they've required that they be disguised and that kind of thing. So, so there's a kind of visual aspect, but also I think the greater reason, especially for the right-of-way installations that we're concerned about, is that it's a new technology. It's a new medium for the technology, right? When we had our old cable franchise agreements, we addressed kind of equity and the kind of service to the public in a certain way. And now with these different installations, it's separate and more complicated. So I believe in our discussions before, you talked about how to work with the new state preemption, basically, but also with the actual telecom companies in order to be able to even count and track and determine where service is and where it isn't. Because it's less obvious than it was under the old contracts. Did I summarize that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So this, even though you said it reads differently, but that's kind of this extra 20,000 is going to allow us to better do that.
Yes, it's 57,000.
And then we have the information where we can say what is where the telecoms or service to our citizens, where it is and where it isn't and where it might be, so we can assess if we're falling short.
That's correct.
Good.
And there is a digital equity. I think that was the phrase you were looking for. There's a digital equity component to this. Yes.
Okay, great. I knew that it was kind of, there was more here than what the words were saying, and so I was wanting to make sure that I was kind of following along, because it's definitely something I think it's new and it's a big area of concern to citizens, but it's new for council. So I just want to make sure I'm staying up to date. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion from members? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Excuse me. That takes us to Bill 1528,
Bill 1528, resolution amending resolution number 687, which authorized the mayor and director of innovation and performance on behalf of the city to enter into a professional services agreement with Planet Technologies for essential support and maintenance services for the continued operation of the city's SaaS email and data file collaboration, including Evolve 365, online training, and telephone support related to any Microsoft 365 software features, increasing the authorized contract amount by $27,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to our Intergovernmental Affairs Committee chaired by Councilwoman Gross. One supplemental paper, Bill 1544.
Bill 1544, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into the 2020-2024 amended and restated corporation and support agreement with the Allegheny Regional Asset District, the Carnegie Library, and the Allegheny County, and to enter into an amended agreement, an amendment thereto, and ratifying prior actions.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Our last bill of the day is Bill 1519.
Bill 1519, resolution adopting plan revision to the City of Pittsburgh's official sewer facilities plan for proposed land development located at 4554 through 4564 Penn Avenue at the parcels number 49M 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, and 126.
Motion to hold 2 weeks.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It will be held 2 weeks. That is our agenda. We do have some meeting announcements. This afternoon at 1:30 p.m., Council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 1414 relative to the Inclusionary Housing Overlay District. You can register for this hearing by filling out the sign-up form on the council meeting schedule webpage by 11:30 this morning. Next week, Council will hold our regular and standing committee meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday, June 8th and June 9th at 10 a.m. You can register to speak at next week's meetings by filling out the sign-up form on the council meeting schedule webpage by 9 a.m. next Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. You may also register by calling the city clerk's office at 412-255-2138. With that, members, Councilman O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I need to call for a post agenda with this is what used to be called the youth budget, wants to come in to present their budget requests for this upcoming year. They're actually going to request state funding, so I don't believe they're going to request anything from us, but I just want to make a motion to hold Cablecast post agenda with used to be called our youth budget, but it's our Pittsburgh Public Schools Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Can we get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Cablecast public hearing will be held. Post agenda, excuse me.
Post agenda.
Sorry. Anything from other members? If not, we need a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.